So you can have an idea that, yes, I'm capable of being influential or of adding value to whatever's going on over there. But also you need to be able to identify opportunity yourself, because you might go for one thing and you end up doing something else. You know, you have to pivot. You know, you can't just say one thing and that's it. Like, for example, I think there's a great opportunity right now for the geisha era is on its way out. It will always exist, but what I mean by way out, it's not like gonna vanish.
It's run its course, though.
Yeah, people can't afford it anymore.
Yeah,
people can't keep buying Panama geisha for their home brew anymore in China, right? So the problem is that everybody know how to roast this very expensive coffee, but nobody knows how to roast the
everyday
middle.
Drinker. This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 5. And unfortunately, the final episode of this series, but don't worry, Nawar will be back at least 2,000 times in the life of this podcast.
Forever.
He's the most regular that we're ever regularly going to have.
100%. Sorry, everybody.
And I'm very proud of that. So we are talking about exploring what it is to run a company across borders. So essentially having a brand in different countries. And Stitch is now in China and in Japan, as well as in Australia. And hopefully we will one day be lucky enough to have Stitch in the UAE. That would make me exceptionally happy. But in this episode, we're going to talk specifically about adapting a brand to a new culture. Now, the Chinese culture is exceptionally different from the Australian culture. How do you approach adapting a brand like Stitch, even though you had, from what you said in the first episode of this series, like it was in your mind. You created this brand with going into Asia in your mind. What other things do you need to do to adapt that brand, and what was your mindset?
I think the first thing you have to do there is willing to do things that you normally don't.
What do you mean?
You just need to be an open mind and a sponge and really listen and don't talk things that you don't need. You don't know. Don't say your opinion if you're not being asked to say your opinion, and just be mindful that there's a bit of a research need to do a little bit more on the history, the culture, the type of politics conversation that you need to have and all that sort of thing. So it's very important to respect what and how they live. It's not about you. It's not about what you think and how, it is done in Australia should be done over there. I don't think that's how you should approach it. And you just...
many of the Australian coffee bros would have benefited very, very much from hearing what you just said before they went to America, before they went to China, before they came here to the UAE, before they went to Saudi. A lot of this. It's something that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, you have to be just completely in a different mindset when you go there. And the other part is you have to be willing to be very quiet on the table, because they will talk a lot and you'll be like, it's hard because you're like deaf, you really don't
you can't understand what they're saying
going on. So you really need to be so patient and wait your turn till somebody tell you what's happening. And it's important. And you just have to change your way of thinking. You need to go there and say, okay, I'm here to learn. I'm here to see first, understand first before I act or react to anything that's around me, One. Second, you need to ask question. Hey, what can I, to people who you trust, of course, don't ask question to people, they don't know you, other that will misunderstand you. But, what do you think? Does this topic is important? Does that conversation would help? Do I talk about this now, or should I wait a little bit? You just need to be able to accept guidance sometimes, even if it doesn't make sense to you. Even you say, no, I want to talk about it right now, because sometimes it could be very, very bad time. So being able to pick the right time and be very respectful to the way they do things, that then they will trust you and they will open up the doors, and sometimes they will open up opportunity you didn't even count for it.
A brand like Stitch has the capacity and the ingrained intelligence in the brand, right? It has the power to influence culture. How do you approach that? How do you create the opportunities for Stitch to be humble? Because that's what I read from what you're saying. You want to go into a new environment and be humble, but also strong enough that when the opportunity presents itself for you to influence the coffee culture there, that you take that opportunity. Is that something that you think about as a business owner going into China? Is that the intention for the brand?
Part of it, but the thing is, you don't know what you're going to get. So you can have an idea that, yes, I'm capable of being influential or of adding value to whatever's going on over there. But also you need to be able to identify opportunity yourself, because you might go for one thing and you end up doing something else. You have to pivot. You can't just say one thing and that's it. Like, for example, I think there's a great opportunity right now for the geisha era is on its way out. It will always exist, but what I mean by way out, it's not like gonna vanish.
It's run its course, though.
Yeah, people can't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
People can't keep buying Panama geisha for their home brew anymore in China, right? So the problem is that everybody know how to roast this very expensive coffee, but nobody knows how to roast the
everyday
middle.
Drinker. Right.
Yeah, the everyday drink. While in Australia, we like all about everyday drink rather than, I'm going to sell you a geisha and good luck buying it, because nobody will. They don't see the added value of buying a very expensive coffee comparing to other culture, right? Because they started at a different level. So now I think it's a great opportunity. If you're better at Kenya, if you're better roaster as Rwanda, if you're better roaster at really awesome Costa Rica, that can drop the price, but also elevate the experience. So they're looking for value product. They're looking for cheap luxury or value luxury, probably a better word.
Value luxury is a great word. I've never heard this term before.
Which is very good for Australian product, because Australian product in China are the right word is cheap luxury, but they add value. Because they're not like, Australian or French wine are so expensive, but the Australian one can really plug into that amazing, everyone can afford it kind of thing, but you're still going to enjoy the good wine of it, That doesn't mean there's some amazing wine happening in China, right? So a lot of things you need to be able to kind of pick along the way, and how do you pivot and how do you adjust? So you just need to be there in a super open. It's a canvas.
Yeah.
And you just have to paint as you go. You might have an understanding. Okay, this is where we want to be. This is the look and feel, and you can create your audience. That's the beautiful thing about it. You can have some really crazy fans, who really love you, and they will go from one show to another, and they will. Some people take photo of you and they're like, can you sign your own photo? Like it's crazy, right?
I can't imagine. Fuck, that would be as wild as watching you do karaoke. Like is that weird to you?
I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like, it's not weird. It's like, I will never do it, but it's weird because like, who am I? I'm nobody,
Easy.
kind of thing. Like, yeah, I don't know why you want it, but hey, why not? I think a photo is enough.
Yeah, wow.
But it's interesting. And but you do need to be willing to adapt and to change and to figure out. Like an example of this will be, 100-gram bags, don't go with 250-gram bag. Very bad idea. Nobody want to buy 250-gram bag. It's too much.
What?
In Asia, Yeah, you need to go in with 100-gram bags. You have to adjust. You have to change.
Yeah,
you have to
wow.
reconfigure how you do things, and you can't just say, no, I do 250. I don't care what they think. They have to buy 250. Guess what? Nobody going to buy 250 because it's too big. Not because it's expensive, because it's too much coffee,
You can imagine what it was like to charge $8 for an 8-ounce bottle in America, right?
Yeah.
With Elixir. They were like, what do you mean? This is $8. At the time, your standard average latte was costing about $1.99. And here I was, and that was even bigger than 8 ounces. And so here we're introducing a new beverage category into the whole market, and we're charging $8 for a beverage that's 8 ounces in a fancy bottle. But they were like, wait, I love this, but I want it in like a 32 ounces.
Super large, yeah.
They want a 32 ounce, which is almost a liter. They want a 32 ounce bottle for the same price. So we can't make it for that.
Yeah, exactly. So same thing. So you have to really pivot and adjust. Yeah.
Why the 100-gram bags in Asia? I don't understand.
Because they don't drink that much coffee. Oh. They don't want to have coffee for such a long period of time.
Okay.
They want to evolve. They're changing. They want a different coffee, quicker, blah, blah, blah. So that's another thing you have to learn.
One thing that anyone who's on Instagram sees is that packaging is a big deal to a lot of the different cultures in Asia. Is that your experience in China? And how does Stitch have to adapt culturally to that? Because it's definitely a part of the brand's culture in Australia, but have you had to adapt very much in Asia?
Yeah, you really need to sometimes accept that you might not have the best environmental friendly package to wow people.
Okay.
So you might have to go and say, well, if you're only going to go with everything sustainable, you're not going to, first you can't afford it because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Second is maybe they don't look at it as an important factor in their buying. They just want shiny stuff. They want plastic stuff. We haven't done it there. We haven't gone that far yet, which is good. But sometimes you might have to think that you might need that clear plastic box that looks so cool, but then you have to say, okay, how can I make it that it's a long term, not just a short term that you chuck it in the bin? But they do have facilities that recycle all this. So also they are so advanced in their recycling.
Oh, really?
That you don't need to worry about that. I mean, I don't know how 1.2 billion people, or probably more now, live in a country where it's so clean. It's insane.
Is it?
It's so clean. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's unreal.
What are some of the cultural misconceptions you think people might have of the Chinese coffee industry? Or China in general?
In China in general, I think they will think that everything is dirty, everything is horrible, and people are just
busy and noisy
busy and noisy, or just want to grab you or anything like that. It's actually none of that. It's super safe. It's I'm not talking about industrial area. There's
like
some industrial
Dubai,
area, of course. Yeah.
Really?
China is safe. Yeah.
As safe as here.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say that in general because, some places where they don't touch you as a foreigner, just to start. Okay. As a foreigner, you're okay.
Okay.
They don't really want to cause trouble with foreigners. They don't want to cause that. But between themselves, maybe they're not as safe as we think.
It's the same as the Middle East. And maybe Australia, and America for fucking sure.
I mean? Maybe I'm not going to generate, I'm not there to general everything that is so beautiful.
Right.
Of course not. There will be idiots in somewhere.
Is it
But it
green?
is yeah, very green.
Wow.
And some cities also that very interesting because when you go Beijing, it's super dry. Like it's
Really?
dry. Never had a dry. I've never ever experienced a dry weather in my life. I hate lip balms, and I started to use them because you can't
Wow.
live without it. Like it's dry, man, like crazy. And then you go Guangzhou or Shenzhen, it's like tropical. It's insane. They're very
Wow.
different places. Yeah, very very different weather.
Well, your cafes, you said you're going to open 5 of them. That's the goal, is to have max 5. Will you open them in different cities? Because you mentioned that the
Yeah.
cities have different cultures, right? Will each
Yeah,
of... Go on.
So cultures that really close will be Beijing.
Yeah.
We know that there will be people who will accept the way we do things.
Mhm.
Shanghai is the no-brainer. It's the most expensive one. It's the most challenging one, but it's the prestige of China is to be in Shanghai, especially if you're a coffee brand.
Mhm.
You have to have a store in Shanghai. Shenzhen, it's another tier 1 city that is really big. Guangzhou also, they have some massive, industrial area of fashion and other machinery that they manufacture there. And then you have the Canton Fair that goes for like months. Also, you have Macau. Macau is also a big city. Chengdu, it's quite a very important city there where there's a lot of tourists. You have to also rely on internal tourism. So in China, I don't worry about tourists because it's internal.
Mhm.
The amount of people that travel internal is insane.
It's the largest migration that happens every year, isn't it?
Yeah, people just go from one city to another, travel around. And as I said, like the fast train revolutionized the way you go. Because if you go see like a train station for the bullet train,
Mhm.
it's an airport. It's not a train station. Yeah,
Are you serious? Wow. I got to come with you one time that you go.
It's huge. The amount of people in there is ridiculous. Because they trusted more than the airplane. In China, if the airplane say delay, flight
You're not
delays,
leaving for a week.
they don't tell you when. It can happen in 6 hours. They could say it's coming in 4. It might be in 25 minutes. You have no idea, But bullet trains are on time, like these one, and it's, so a lot of people using that rather than the other one. And you got Hong Kong. Hong Kong is insane, so you've got a lot those like really main cities where you have expats, you have tourism, you have business. You need to have places where there's a combination of factors.
The one thing that we haven't talked about, and as we wrap up this series, I think it might be a good place to land, is the coffee drinking culture in all of these different regions. It's still emerging, right? Like you've got brands like Luckin that are growing and, now going into the US. How is coffee drinking perceived by particularly, I'm interested in understanding the youth over there? Do they look at it as like a novelty? Do they drink like we drink coffee?
Again, it's the fact that, you have to look at it from city to city. So let's say Shanghai is a great example. Shanghai, it's a breakfast. It's a morning beverage as well. Like there's a lot of financial districts over there. So there's a lot of people that have been around the world. So coffee becoming a wake me up kind of beverage, not just to go there to enjoy it. What really revolutionizing over there is actually the signature drink that is really capturing that young audience to come in. There is an amazing brand called OPS in Shanghai as well. They do only signature drink lines. Like you can wait for like 50 minutes to an hour to get there. When you get there, you're not going to order 1. You're going to order 5.
Yeah,
because you waited that long, right? Same thing like, but having said that, I think what amazing job Luckin is doing, either we love it or we hate it, is that they are really preparing the generation coffee drinking generation who will be curious to try something a little bit more different. And this is how we started, right? We all were Starbucks. We all were Gloria jeans. And then suddenly somebody gave you a different cup of coffee and be like, holy shit, is this what coffee tastes like? And
exactly.
then you started the process, right? So they are in that process. That's why I said 7 years away from becoming more serious about coffee, a lot more. The young generation still mainly a lot of tea drinking. So funny, the tea here is so expensive in Australia, right? The bubble tea over there is peanut. Coffee is expensive comparing to the bubble tea world, you know? So it's like, you know, the opposite of what's happening here happens there. But is it, you know, like when we went to a city like Donghua, for example, which is a tier 2 in the middle of the big city, it wasn't a specialty coffee city. You know, there is cities they're not specialty coffee.
Will it become one?
When there is not a lot of big guys, there is an opportunity to create.
Right. And this is where a brand like Stitch can come in and set the tone for a city like that.
Exactly. This is where you can come in and actually tier 2 city and tier 3 city are way better than tier 1. You know, because tier 1, everybody's there. All the big guns, all the big money, you know, tier 2, nobody's there. So you can, you know, it's cheap. The young generation have money in it. There's a lot of money in tier 1 city, tier 2 and tier 3 because it's not expensive.
Yeah.
You know,
wow.
So people have extra cash to spend on and to go luxury mode. You know, so all those things are important. Now, fast track to Tokyo. Tokyo is a lot more very similar to us. You know,
Sydney.
They use coffee as functional beverage. You know, they are in that process of, you know, they've got a lot of, but you have to know, like some brand that went in only espresso made a big mistakes. You know, you can't just rock up as an espresso. You really need to go brew bar first or filter and then slowly take them into the journey, you know? So those are important things to keep in the back of your mind. You're still going to make the mistakes. Don't worry.
Yeah,
like even if you have it in the back of your mind, but it's kind of important to understand that your brand might not work for everybody there, you know? Like example, Shangsha, they love very sour coffee, you know, because they like more tea, like they're more preferring, you know, some really light body, but just have lemon flavor in it, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Rather than buddy. They don't like buddy. Buddy in China is not something they look for. Sweetness is not important as much as anything else, you know, because they're tea drinking. So they looking at it from a tea perspective. It doesn't have a lot of buddy. Tea, you know, it's all about that really nuance of flavors that is gonna subtle flavors, right? So that is things that, you know, you need to think. And, you know, we've changed a little bit the roast profile this time that what we did in the past, you know. So we went more filter roasting, then we went like what we do here, omni roasting, you know. So we've adjusted because you have to adjust, otherwise they're not gonna enjoy the coffee the way you do it.
And that's that years of investment that you put into knowledge and your team so that, you know, when it comes time to adjust, right? Shout out to Namiru. You know, the ability of your team to be able to understand what it means to be able to adapt and how to do it quickly because they've been cultivating the skills for that whole time.
Correct.
You're an asset to our industry, sir. And I'm just so proud to be able to have watched this from the time we're both standing at an espresso machine become what it is today and what it'll become in the next 10 years. If people go to China and they want to find Stitch and Japan, actually, how do they go about doing that?
We do have a
social media.
Social media where they can connect with the team over there. Second, we have a store in Suzhou, in a small city next to Shanghai. When I say small, still 12 million.
That's bigger than Sydney.
To make sure the people understand what is a small city over there. And it's only 20 minutes from Shanghai by bullet train, so it's not far. In Tokyo, we also have our team there. So if they want to connect with them directly, we have an Instagram page. And they opened a store called Walkabout near Kanda, which is very close to Tokyo main train station, like the subway called Kanda. It's more like office space. If you go to Glitch Coffee Roasters, you're gonna find Stitch not far from it, you know, as well. So they open. I mean, more soft, but in the future is gonna be more like a proper opening. But you still can go and enjoy a cup of coffee if you are in the area as well. So.
Inshallah, we get to go together one day, and I get to
100%.
sit in a different city and drink your coffee. That would be very, very fucking cool. It's fun. Links are in the show notes, everyone. So you get access to the links for Stitch Coffee in Sydney, 2 stores, one in Broadway, one in QVB. Online, you can order. Do you ship international?
Yeah, we do.
So you can get it international.
Our store.
And also we'll have the links for the social media for the other brands. Well, the same brand in different countries. Nawar, do you remember how we sign off this podcast?
Will
you do it? Are you fucking kidding? Bro, you do know how it is.
Peace, love, and peanut butter.
Yes, well
right.
done.
No.
You do this every fucking time you come on the podcast. Do it again.
Hey,
Tell them.
I have peace, love, and peanut butter. Thank you, everybody.
Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone.
Very often.
Bye.
My brain fried, you know?
Bye, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.